Any requested discussion items?
Laura had one.
Oh, yes, Laura did have one. Okay, the March for Climate Change?
Yes. So this discussion is for us as board members. It's about empowering our administration to say no when it's appropriate. Because I think, our administration bends over backwards for our students to take every advantage. Even when there was the Cubs rally, administration, it was a huge hit in our attendance, but it's once in 120 years, and they made every, event.
108.
When we had the student who, was unfortunately hit by the car and died, there was a march to the site. Administration made the march and walk with them safely and appropriately. We had that conversation a day before that march, and none of us knew about it. It had not been planned. It had not been brought up to the administration the day before the march. We saw the email in the morning saying anybody who left be considered a cut. And I supported that because nobody had come and asked and said, we really support this. We're involved in environmental issues. And I'm not opposed to that. Our family makes choices to be environmentally conscientious and part of a restoration group for 20 years. But then I saw in the Clarion that, at the last minute we accommodated some students. The article in the Clarion. That some students marched out, they went to the football field, and this was that. We talk about career readiness. You can't just walk out on your job and not tell your boss this is something that's meaningful to me, or you can't come the day of and say, well, I'm going to do this. I really feel like on that day, our administration would have been in the appropriate place to say, well, I'm sorry, not this time. You didn't have a good plan. We want to support you, but this is how we go about doing it. But sometimes when our administration says no, the newspaper writes about it, they're horrible, they don't want to support students. But that's not the case. Our administration does a great job in supporting students. So as a board, I think it was appropriate that we have that conversation to say, no, you can say no sometimes, and we'll support you to say no. If nobody approached you and made a plan to do this, we don't have to say yes for every whim without a good plan. And I don't know what other board members think.
I think we should get a little background from Hector. As we didn't know that this was going to be a topic of discussion tonight, so what you have from your knowledge of the situation. I know there were a small group of students. You and I had talked about it the night before, and you had shared some thoughts with me that it would have been treated differently if they would have went through the proper channels. But you want to provide a little background, you can.
Yeah, sure. So we were, a student sent an email to me, and we addressed it in the morning, and I talked about him wanting to participate in the global climate change, and he shared it with other classmates. He had a few responses. So, but the minute we found out, we brought the student in. What's going on? What's the purpose? Why are you doing this? Please talk to us about it. And the young man, he knew his points. We want to walk in together. We care about the environment. But it was really last minute. I want to be involved as a principal. I want to empower our young men and women. However, we were not involved, and that's one of the reasons why I had to take, a firm stance, and I addressed the situation, with the cut. As far as the actual event, at about 12:30, maybe 20 students, went to the main entrance and said, we want to walk out, because we believe in this global climate change, So right away, we started acting. I'm like, can we find a safe space for you all? And the students were agreed, Do you mind if we go to the football field, So we went to the football field. The students hung around. They spoke, about the issue, among each other. 15 minutes later, they all came back peacefully in and reported to class. There was no disciplinary issue, no disciplinary referral address, not a suspension, school suspension, or nothing like that. I did tell them about the consequences academically that they could face, and they powerfully chose to participate in it. So it was a smooth day. Only a few students really participated in this. However, I am open for future extended learning opportunities. It just has to go through the right and proper channels.
And can we make sure that we communicate those through SA and through your principals forum.
Yes. Yep.
And not that we want to encourage walkouts or protests, but at the same time, should they choose, there should be some protocol they go through with you, and they understand that there will be ramifications, and which would be the attendance issue, and the being marked as a cut.
So were those 20 students marked as a cut?
Yes.
Okay. And, as a board, I think I want to support our administration and say, yes, it's a cut. You said it would be, and not because you're not supportive of the issue, but because we just didn't have a good plan for it. Yeah.
That's fair to say, yes.
Okay.
There's a process,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And to your point of like, you wouldn't do this, right? Because we're training them to go to
Right.
work or to be productive adults, right? And so in their adult life, they wouldn't just do it.
But to Kevin's point, students need to know ahead of time what the process is so that they can follow it. They can't follow it if they don't know what it is, right? So we just have to communicate that out to them. And if, I agree, like I support the administration wholeheartedly, and I'm fine with it being a cut for them, but kids do need to know ahead of time, like if we're going to walk out for this globe, whatever the case may be, just follow the proper steps and
I think we did communicate that at 8 o'clock to parents about the 12:30. I mean, a kid sent it to the principal less than 24 hours before. And again, it's not something we want to necessarily encourage, but put some parameters in place so that there is a way for students to peacefully protest or express their concerns or interest, but also understand that there are consequences. If you decided to attend a protest and miss work that day, you would either take a sick day or be charged and lose pay that day.
Right.
So, those are some ramifications of same thing at the high school.
Yeah.
So
So my
think,
point of bringing that up was just to support administration to make a hard decision, because the newspapers are not always fair that way.
And again, I think the Clarion's a student perspective,
Right.
which is good, and I would, it's one perspective.
Yeah.
So I guess I have a couple thoughts. I think that the board policies in place are very supportive towards the students who took action on Friday, right? I think it's very clear you're not disrupting the education environment, you're not causing harm to some other human. I'm paraphrasing heavily here. I'm not sure the policies speak to going through a process. Part of the art of protest is not to tell people above you that you're going to protest. So I think that's, some of it is a balancing act in terms of what the students may be trying to change. I agree it was a very last minute approach, it appears in this case, but certainly the March for Climate Change had been known about for months and months. So the date itself wasn't new. There was just a lot of, I think, media interest in the movement as last week kind of headed towards the UN conference. Absolutely support the administration in terms of how it was handled. I think there was some good communication on it. I think that there was follow-up makes perfect sense. There was a cause and effect to Kevin's point. But I also think we, as we are looking for these kids to be active in their society, there's different ways to handle protests that may have been in place from when we were kids or 40 years ago were kids. And I think we just need to be somewhat flexible as we go forward in knowing how we respond to protests today may be different than how we would have responded 10 years ago. Social media has a different aspect to it. I think the causes are much more real seeming in many ways to kids. They have a different level of political engagement than certainly was the case when I was in high school. So I'm trying to recognize that and balance it out with, I think the point is a solid one. They are here to go to school, right? They are here to spend their time in school. But also being mindful of if we need to look at our policies at some point, have that discussion.
Okay,